Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. As you can see in the picture today, let's start the story of what if Issei becomes Saiyan has a massive harem part 3. Before we start, please go support DeltaPyrusDragonoid for writing that awesome fanfic. Now let's begin. This is the translated version I made. There will be some wrong he or she calling here because it's translated, so let me clear this. Issei is a male in this story. Part 2, Excalibur Part 2. Warning. Lemon in this chapter. While at Issei's house, Rias, a sacred sword is the worst enemy for a demon, since it burns a demon as soon as it touches it and destroys it with a single blow. I explained to Issei and Asia, who were listening attentively to Rias, so a sword is capable of killing demons very easily. Issei. That's interesting and scary to hear, he said seriously. Rias, however, it is also true that only a select few are capable of using them. That is why the Church has tried to artificially create beings capable of wielding them. I speak to then sharpen my gaze. That was the Sacred Sword Project. I say. Holy Sword Project? He asked curiously. Asia. I never heard anything about that project when I was in church. Rias? It is not surprising, since it was a long time ago. From what they told me, the project was a total failure, she said to Sayumi. As a survivor of the project, she spoke, dropping the bomb to her servants. Asia, Yumi-san? I asked in amazement at that clarification. Issei. That's why the hatred towards Excalibur, he said, analyzing the events that happened today, to remember what changed his mood. Rias, I think I know why it's like this, he said, taking out the photo that Yumi saw in the album and passing it to him. Girlfriend, when she saw the photo, she said the sword was a holy sword. Asia? Is that true? Rias stared at the photo with an analytical face. Rias? There is no doubt that it is a holy sword, not as powerful as Excalibur, but it is a Asia? I didn't know Issei-san had one of those swords so close to him, she spoke impressed. Issei? Now I remember that sometimes we went with his family to church every Sunday, he spoke, pointing to the violet-eyed boy in the photo. Rias? I see, he said, looking at the photo. Now I understand why the owner of the house disappeared. But without a doubt, he said, half finishing the sentence to continue staring at the photo. I say. Rias? I asked his girlfriend that he was still serious. Rias. Excuse me, she said to relieve her boyfriend of worry. It's getting late. It'll be better to go to sleep, she said to start taking off her clothes, making Asia blush, and Issei, who had a look of doubt. Is something wrong? I asked him while he took off his skirt. Issei, why are you taking off your clothes? I asked her. Rias? You know I can't sleep with clothes on, she answered, taking off her shirt, leaving herself in her underwear. Asia? The question you should have asked is, why is she undressing in your room? She told him with a blush and pouting at the physique that Rias had. Rias? It's not obvious. I'm going to sleep with my boyfriend, she answered Asia, who only puffed out her cheeks even more. Asia. In that case, me too, she said, taking off her clothes. I also want to sleep with Issei, since she said to let the skirt fall. Rias looked defiantly at Asia, who only puffed out her cheeks again in an adorable way. Rias? Asia, I remind you that Ice is my boyfriend, so it is my place to sleep with him, he said defiantly to Asia. Asia, I don't want to. Since you started your relationship with the Saiyan, it's unfair that you're always with him, she said defiantly. I also want to sleep with the Saiyan. Rias? Ice is my boyfriend, so I have the right to be with him all the time, she said, so that Asia puffed out her cheeks even more so that the Saiyan would intervene. Issei, girls, you can calm down a little, she asked the two demons, who looked at her in unison. Rias? Then Ice will decide who he wants to sleep with. Asia? Okay, said the ex-nun with acceptance. Issei-san, please choose. Issei, yeah, he said half-heartedly. If I were still a pervert, I would be enjoying the view, but now the last thing I want is to decide. I don't want anyone to fight over me, she thought with frustration. Greg, partner, you better decide soon before things get bigger, she said to her friend through the mental link. Issei. Thank you, Greg, you are a good friend, she responded to the red dragon. So that before the Saiyan responded, Asia grabbed Issei's right hand, while Rias grabbed his left to start a tug-of-war with Issei. Asia? I came to live in Issei Sen's house first, shouted pulling Issei. Rias? But he's my boyfriend, he should be with me, right Ice? I shout to Asha to ask her boyfriend Asia. I admit that you are a couple, but still I love Issei-san too and my feelings for him will not lose with yours, but you-san. The discussion was going to continue until the chair where the Saiyan sat lost its balance, making Issei fall, who involuntarily used his body to cushion the fall of Rias and Asia. Issei. Why does this happen to me? He thought so that the screen of his computer fell directly in his face, so that before going to the world of dreams, he would hear the collective laughter of Drag and the Bijuos, where Kurama sounded louder. I'm Skip. The next morning, in Issei's room, we can see how the Saiyan was sleeping like a log while he was talking in his dreams. Issei. N. Food enters my mouth, he said asleep with a waterfall of drool running down his mouth so that then his alarm clock rang, and when he tried to move his arm to turn off the alarm, he felt that his arms were trapped. Why can't I move my arms? He asked the air in his head. Kurama? Cub, why don't you open your eyes? The QB asked him between laughs, so that when he opened his eyes he found a beautiful vision, Rias to his right and Asia to his left, naked, hugging him with a lot of love. Say, how did I get to the bed? He whispered so as not to wake up the two women at his sides. Greg. Rias placed you on the bed with a magic circle since you had the undershirt that your brother gave you, which weighs about 2 tons, I say. Thanks for the clarification, he said, ending the conversation to move his shoulders gently to wake up Rias. Rias, wake up, he said softly so that she hugged the Saiyan even more. You asked for it. He said to give her a kiss, she reciprocated, but before Rias put her tongue in the Saiyan's mouth, he moved away. Good morning, beautiful. How did you sleep, Rias? Moo, oh Ice, why did you stop? She said, puffing out her cheeks, which in the sight of Issei made her adorable. Issei. I had to wake you up, I tried gently and you left me no alternative, he responded while she was still pouting. Now it's Asia's turn, he said to gently move Rias Bishop. Asia, time to get up, I whispered to her to stop that. She rubbed her eyes even while asleep. Asia, is it daytime already? She asked no one in particular to feel them caressing her hair, making her smile and open her eyes. Issei. Good morning, Asia, said hers with a smile, which was reciprocated by her. Asia. Good morning, Issei-san, he said so that Issei turned off the alarm and Asia looked at the time. Breakfast, she said, alarmed, I have to go prepare it. Rias? Oh no, said Rias to take the sheet and place it around her body. We'll wait for you downstairs. Aye, she said, Asia. And thank you for letting us sleep with you. Asia spoke, putting on her pale green sleeping dress and leaving Issei's room with Rias. Issei stood still for a few moments, remembering everything that happened to him recently. Issei, so many things have happened in such a short time, he said, looking into space, but I'm happy about all this. He spoke with a smile so that a green glow appeared in his left hand. Greg, I'm glad that too, my friend, since good things have happened to me too. He spoke to his partner who was looking with doubt at the shine on his hand. You stopped being perverted. I no longer have problems with Tiamat, and your promises that I can get out of the boosted gear and that my wife and unborn child would come back to life, I explained to Essie. Essie, don't worry, Greg, I will keep my promises and I don't break my promises, he responded to the dragon. Greg, you still have to stay alert, there's no telling when the target will appear. Issei. Albion, the same responded. Greg, correct. The white dragon, vanishing dragon, my brother and rival. He and I were the only celestial dragons since the incident. We have never stopped fighting when we were sealed in our respective sacred gear. Our wielders are destined to fight each other. Yeah, Issei, so there is another sacred gear just like yours? Greg. Our sacred gear are only the same in 2 things, they are both Longinus, and they have a dragon sealed in it, and the rest they are not the same. Issei. And will I have to fight the bearer of it one day, Greg? Exactly, he answered. Issei. Perfect, I just hope he is a rival for us, said the Greg. Us? I asked strangely. Issei. When I say we, I'm talking about you and me since together we are stronger, he said, making Drake smile inside the boosted gear. And now that I remember, I have to tell you something, friend. Greg. The what? Issei. When you take out the boosted gear, there will be a drawback. You will be just as powerful as in your best times. But your appearance will be different from before. You will keep your colors, but the shape of your body will be different. Do you agree? Greg. I agree with that, mate. As long as he can go outside, I don't care, Issei. Well, let's begin. I speak to concentrate his power, emanating a red glow in his hands. Scene change. Academy entrance. Entering the academy, there was the president of the student council, Sona Citri Aliosana Shatorai, reading a book, being followed by the vice president of the student council, Tsubaki Shinra. Tsubaki? Kaiju? He asked his king, who was staring straight ahead, where there were two people, with white cloaks, with a hood covering their heads, and in one of the hooded ones, he had an object wrapped in bandages with the symbol of a holy sword, Sona. A holy sword, she said seriously, looking at the two people in front of her. Time skip, sunset. Asia. The floor is shiny, she said, looking at the floor that looked like a mirror. Because of Asia's reflection on the floor, Issei-san looks like a mirror, right? Issei just nodded, looking at his reflection. Asia? She said, approaching a door with a lock and several tapes that said, "Keep out what will be in that room." Issei? That room has always been closed since I entered this building, said the rememberer. We call it the Forbidden Room. After the talk about the room, they went to the main hall where Rias and Kaneko were. Rias? Now that the building is impeccable, we can use it again, Issei and Yumi-chan. He said, looking around looking for the princess of Kwa, Kaneko. Yumi-senpai hasn't come to school today, Issei. Rias, does this have to do with what you told us yesterday? I ask her owner, who just sighs. Rias, tell me, please, she is my friend, and I want to help her. So what does Yumi have to do with the sacred swords? Rias. I told you that Yumi was a survivor of the Holy Sword Project, right? He told Issei, who just nodded his head besides Yumi. There were more children conditioned to be compatible with Excalibur, he said. Shocking Issei and Asia, there were more children because the original Excalibur was broken in the Great War, and the church collected the sword fragments, and used alchemy to create 7 other Excalibur swords, each with a special ability. You see. And I imagine that Yumi was able to wield one of them? Issei responded with a guess, so that Rias shook her head. Rias? Yumi, along with the other children, failed to be compatible with the Excalibur, she said, closing her eyes. The experiment was a total failure, she said, opening her eyes in sadness. Asia, failure? Asia asked, so that Issei would open his eyes to the outcome of the experiment. Issei? Rias, if Yumi was reincarnated as a demon, that means she had died, he said, trying to find a reason. Don't tell me that they killed the children of the project, he said, making Asia put her hands on her mouth. At that conjecture. Rias? You're not wrong. Ice, the person in charge of the project, upon seeing the failure of the project, decided to get rid of Yumi and the other children, he said, remembering how he met and reincarnated Yumi. She was the only one who escaped. When I found her, she was at doors of death, but in her eyes there was still the spark of revenge. Upon seeing her potential, I reincarnated her as my horse. Issei clenched his fists at the image of children murdered for the ambition of a man. Asia. How cruel, she said, to feel a great glow next to her, who, like Rias and Kaneko, looked at the source of that light. They saw Issei with his hair standing on end while she emanated a golden aura. Issei, how dare you, she said as his hair flashed from black to gold, while his eyes had no pupils. That man deserves no mercy, she said, so that his hair stood on end and his eyes turned. They turned sky blue. I say, if I meet that bastard, I will tear his back off, shout, increasing the radiance of the aura. There he is. Ice, calm down, she told her pawn and boyfriend, count to 10 and relax. She asked the Saiyan, who looked at his girlfriend's worried face, to blow gently so that her hair would return to its normal color and her aura would disappear. Then the door opened in Akino. Tsubaki and Sona entered, who had worry written on their faces. Sona? Rias, what was that glow? She asked her friend. Rias, I'll explain it to you later, she said, making Sona nod. What do you need, Sona? Sona? Rias, could you walk me home right now? I asked Rias. No one will be able to interrupt our conversation there. Rias? Sounds serious, right? She answered, Citri. Sona? Yes, it's something very serious. Rias? I understand, she said, getting up from her seat. See you at home, Ice. She said goodbye to the black-haired man and left with Sona, leaving Issei, Asia and Kaneko alone. Scene change? Streets of Issei. I wonder what will happen if Kaiju is worried. It must be something big, said the Asia. Who knows, said Asia. Issei, what do you think, Kaneko-chan? He asked his cow. Hi. Kaneko? Nothing, but you always does what's right, but I'm more worried about Yumi-senpai. I'm also worried about her. Ria said it before about her, but at least I would like to help her not only as a member of the club, but also as her friend said hers to Kaneko. Kaneko? I also think the same, Issei-senpai, she said, so that the traffic light on the road turned green then. Until tomorrow I speak crossing the zebra crossing, Issei. See you tomorrow, Kaneko-chan. He said to her cow hi, saying goodbye to her. Asia. Goodbye, Kaneko-chan, see you tomorrow. Asia said goodbye to Kwa's pet, while Goku's brother had a worried face. Issei. Kaneko-chan and Akeno-san seem empathetic towards Yumi-chan. Did they have had problems before being reincarnated as demons? He mentally asked himself. Scene change? Sona's house, sauna. In the sauna of Sona's house, Rias and Akino were covered by a towel, covering their decency. Rias, it's been a while since I've been here, right? She said, taking off the towel revealing her naked body. Akino? I remember that many times you came here, she said, releasing her sensual figure from the confinement of the towel. Sona, in this place, I and Rias came to talk about too many things, said the Citri heiress, untying the towel from her body, while Rias and Akino turned behind them, making their breasts bounce to hand her the towel to Shinra, who was behind her. This place was prepared as a sauna for us. Tsubaki. This place is an alternate realm directly connected to Sona-sama's headquarters. No one will be able to enter once the entrance is sealed. Akino. I'm not surprised that what is said here doesn't leave this place. There is. Some things we talked about were about my mother's scoldings, trivialities from our daily lives, she said wistfully. As for Sona, they were almost always things related to her older sister. Bikeno. Era, so you both also went through the same experience? Sona, that happened a long time ago, she said with her eyes closed. Rias, I don't think you brought us here to talk about the past, did you? Sona opened her eyes, still maintaining seriousness on her face. Sona. This morning 2 church members contacted me, Akino. Did they contact you? Akino said with surprised eyes. Rias? It has been a long time since a man voice from the church came to Kwa, she said seriously at this information. And why have they come here? He asked his childhood friend, Sona. They asked to talk to Rias? Rias was surprised by that information. Rias, is this a joke? She said surprised. What do the envoys of the church want from me? I spoke while the Citri heiress cleaned her glasses. This smells like problems to me. And what did you answer? Sona. Except, of course, tomorrow after class you will go to your club room. Rias? It was the only thing she said. Sona? Although there is one thing that bothers me, Tsubaki. The 2 envoys of the church carried a holy sword, the Keno, holy sword. Rias? If they carry a sacred sword, the situation is more serious than we can imagine, she said to remember the photo that Issei showed her. It couldn't be that, she thought. Sona. Changing the subject, Rias, she said, drawing her friend's attention, I already found out about your relationship with Issei, and from the smile you had when you were with him, it is clear that you are completely in love with him, she said with a sincere smile, upon seeing her friend's happiness so that she would blush at what her childhood friend said. Rias? Since he saved me from the engagement with Reiser, he stole my heart, and something else he explained to Sona, and she whispered the last thing to herself. Akino? I think he also took something else from you, didn't he, Rias? She said, making Rias blush more, and Sona and her queen were curious. Sona. What was it? She said innocently, while Tsubaki opened her eyes knowing what she took. Tsubaki. I took away her purity, she said breathily, making Sona open her eyes wide. Sona, shall I take your virginity? She asked her friend, who had her hands covering her face since she was dead of shame. Rias only nodded, still with her face covered. Sona. Because it hurts me to know this, she said, feeling a prick in her heart without knowing that the same thing happened to her queen. Scene change. Exterior of Issei's house. Issei, along with Asia, were about to enter the house. Asia will stay still. Issei. Is something wrong, Asia? Asia? I feel chills, she said, so that Issei narrowed his eyes as he felt sacred energy in his home. Issei. Asia, get behind me, he said seriously. To enter the house, if they have done something to my family, I will disintegrate them. He thought to hear his mother laugh. Approaching the living room, he found his mother talking to two girls, who wore a white cloak. Izumi. Welcome, son, she spoke to her adopted son with joy. Why do you have that face? Issei. So the sacred energy was given off by them. Izumi-san, who is he? Said the girl with pigtails. It looks familiar, but I don't know where from. Izumi? Oh, it's true, Irina, this is Issei, she said, bringing a gasp to the brunette with pigtails. He had some changes long after you left, she explained to Irina, who only nodded. By the way, Issei, she said, drawing the boy's attention, saying this is your childhood friend, should you? Irina-chan, he said, showing her the photo with the purple-eyed boy. At that time, she seemed like a boy, and now she is a woman, he said with a smile. Issei. What? He shouted, looking at the photo and at Irina repeatedly. Issei. It's impossible that the boy he was playing with was such a beautiful girl, I shout, making Irina blush for the compliment. Izumi. Issei. That was very rude, he scolded his son. Issei. I'm sorry, he really surprised me, she said, scratching the back of her neck. Irina. No need to apologize, I can understand the confusion. At that time she was very masculine. I'm also sorry, Irina. Irina? It seems like quite a few things happened to us after we broke up, don't you think? She said so that Issei and Asia would be alert. You really never know what will happen when you see someone after so much time, she said, while her partner looked at the two intently. Scene change. Issei's room. Rias? I'm glad you're both safe, she said, hugging Issei and Asia. I'm sorry, I should have been more careful knowing what was happening, she said, to start crying. I was coming back when I felt the sacred energy in the house. I came running, preparing for the worst, he said, so I could start crying. I'm glad you're safe. Issei grabbed Rias' chin, raising it so that his eyes met those of the black-haired man, who then dried his tears with his thumbs and gave him a light kiss on the lips. Issei, I don't like to see you cry unless it's from joy, he said, hugging her protectively. That's why Rias smiles. You're more beautiful with a radiant smile, hers said, so she could do what he told her. Asia watched this moment with jealousy, so that she puffed out her cheeks and pinched Issei on the arm. Issei. Ow, she said, rubbing the pinched terrier to look at the ex-nun, who only looked away so that Rias sighed. Rias, Ice, can you go out for a moment? I have to talk to Asia. Issei looked doubtfully at his girlfriend, nodded and left the room. After a few minutes, Issei heard his girlfriend's voice at the door. Rias, Ice, you can come in now, she said, so that the Saiyan opened the door and found Asia in her bed with very provocative lingerie, making her have a slight nosebleed at that sight. Issei. Hey Asia, WHW, what are you wearing? She said, pointing to her girlfriend's bishop, who was also blushing. Asia, this. She said, looking at her clothes, it's something I've kept since you saved me from Rainer. Issei. And what is it for? He said, still blushing, ignoring that Asia got out of bed and approached Issei. Asia? For this, she said, to grab Issei's head and kiss him on her lips sweetly. Issei only opened his eyes when he felt Asia's lips colliding with his, so that he hugged her waist and reciprocated the kiss, and then he felt two lumps touching his back and noticed two arms around his torso, hugging him, separating himself from him. Kiss. He looked behind him, finding Rias with lingerie just as provocative as Asia's. Issei. Was it your idea, Rias? I asked to repeat. Rias? More like it was an idea of both of us, she said, confusing the same. Asia is also in love with you, and she was also jealous of the treatment you gave me, so she behaved that way. When I asked you to go out, I explained to her that the hell we can have more than one couple, being equal to dragons, he said, making the black-haired man put the pieces together and blush at the idea that Rias gave him. Issei. Do you want me to have a harem? I asked Rias, who nodded. Rias, wasn't that your dream? I asked him so that he shook his head. Issei. My dream changed when I met my brother. Now I want to be the strongest in the universe, to be able to protect my home and my family, he said with determination. The question is, do you want this? I asked his girlfriend, who made a sigh. Rias. Sooner or later the demonic council would find out about your power and origin, so they would put many arranged commitments on you. I prefer that you marry for love and not out of obligation, but let one thing be clear to you. I will be the first to carry a ring of yours. Issei sighed in defeat. Issei, if that's what you want, he said defeated, so that Asia and Rias grabbed one of his arms each. Rias, leaving that aside, Asia? It's fun time, she said with a smile, taking the Saiyan to bed. Warning, warning, lemon time is activated. When the Saiyan sat on the bed, in a bold move, Asia kissed Issei, who felt his Saiyan blood and dragon instincts ignite to fiercely reciprocate the ex-nun's kiss, and using Kai, increased Asia's sensitivity by brushing his tongue with hers so that when they separated, she was panting so that the Saiyan would kiss her shoulder, going down gently in a path of kisses, licks and light bites, which drove Asia crazy with pleasure. Issei came to Asia's pubic area, giving her a light kiss on her navel, while Lyja was increasingly excited by the attention that her now lover was giving her, while Rias was somewhat jealous of the attention that her pawn was giving to her bishop, so he hugged Issei's left side, using his hands to turn his head, and kissed him passionately, intertwining their tongues at the junction of their lips. Lemon skip, please read it on website. Issei covered her with a blanket and felt the smell of excitement, where when he turned, he saw a beautiful vision that made him hard again. There was Rias, sitting in the chair with wheels, looking seductively at the Saiyan, so that, with his right hand, moved his finger sensually, calling Issei. At night, if Rias had not placed an wise suppression spell, the entire neighborhood would have heard the lustful screams and moans of the trio of demons. Dark 2, Excalibur Part 3. The next morning, Issei, what a night, he whispered, looking to his sides, meeting his two girlfriends, with his right arm hugged by Asia and the left one buried in Ria's neckline, trapping it with his arms, arriving at school, being seen by all the students, where men showed jealousy and respect, while women showed envy and longing. Ys did not notice one of the stones on her pendant. The dark brown one began to glow dimly, the Greek sign for alpha plus or minus, appearing on the stone. After class. Occult Research Club. Inside the meeting room of the old building, the entire nobility of Rias was next to her, staring at the two envoys from the church. Zenobia. We are grateful for your cooperation, said the blue-haired girl. My name is Zenobia. Irina? I am Irina Hyodou, Issei's childhood friend, introduced herself. Rias. Well, why did the servants of God want to meet with me, a demon? I asked them both. Irina. Although it is a search, the Excaliburs were hidden and protected by the 3 branches of the Christian Church, but recently 3 of the Excaliburs were stolen by the fallen angels, she said, bringing concern to those present. Issei? Stolen? He asked. Zenobia showed the cloth she was wearing on her back. Zenobia? The Excaliburs that are still in the possession of the church are these, she said, taking out a bit of the cloth. This is Excalibur Destruction, which is protected by the Catholic Church. Arena. And this is Excalibur Mimic, kept by the Protestant Church. As its name says, it can change shape according to my will, so it is really useful to carry anywhere, she said, showing the rope that was tied to her left arm. Zenobia. Irina, there's no reason to tell these demons the capabilities of Excalibur, right? She reprimanded her comrade in arms. Irina. Wow, Zenobia. Even if they are demons, we have to form a trusting relationship with them in this situation. Furthermore, even if my sword's ability is revealed, I will not fall to all the demons here, she said with some arrogance. Issei. If I were you, I would be careful with that arrogance, or you may encounter an enemy stronger than you, said the Saiyan, annoyed at being undervalued in that way. There he is. So, what do you want from us? Asked the Gremory heiress, ignoring her boyfriend. Zenobia. The problem is between the church and the perpetrator of the theft, Kekabil, she said, making Akino narrow her eyes at that name. We cannot afford to have to mess with the demons of this territory. Rias, you want us not to intervene in this dispute, she said, looking at the two envoys. Do you think we would ally ourselves with Kekabil and do something with the sacred swords? I asked Zenobia and Irina. Zenobia, the demons hate the holy swords, so it is not difficult to think that you would be allies, the brunette spoke, making Ria's eyes shine red. They say. It seems like Rias is getting angry, she thought, feeling the slight increase in her energy. Zenobia. If we must, we will destroy you completely, even though you are Lucifer's younger sister. Rias. The church must know a lot if they know my brother's position, she said. If you know so much about me, let me make one thing clear to you. I will never take the same side as Kekabil or any other person who threatens this city. In the name of the Gremory, I swore that I would never humiliate Lucifer-sama, she said with a confident smile, being imitated by Zenobia. Zenobia? I'm glad to hear that. It's just what headquarters said you would say, she said, closing her eyes. I was convinced that Lucifer's sister wouldn't be so stupid. There he is. Then you would also know that I would never be on your side or that of your lord, right? Zenobia. Sure, we just wanted to clarify that we don't want you to interfere with your mission. There he is. It's clear, she said so that Irina and Zenobia got up from their seats. Zenobia. Sorry for taking up your time. Now that everything is cleared up, we're leaving. Rias. Don't you want to stay and have tea? I asked the two exorcists. Zenobia. I'm sorry, but no, we can't make friends with demons, so with your permission, she said to leave the place where she fixed her sights on Asia. Ever since we were at Hyde to Issei's house, I've been wondering about you, he said, pointing to Asia. Asia? For me, Zenobia? Are you the witch Asia Argento? I asked, shocking Acey's second girlfriend, who opened her eyes at the word witch. Irina? She's the ex-nun who became a witch? I asked no one in particular. I heard that she was exiled from the church for curing a demon, but I didn't expect that she had become a demon. She spoke, making Asia look sad while she grabbed her skirt. At Irina's words, Asia. This I speak without almost being able to speak, Zenobia. Even the ex-holy maiden can become the same as the exile, she said with disappointment, making Issei little by little angry. I guess no one is perfect, she said, provoking the black-haired man's anger even more, who ignited his Kiora, and emanating his power directly to the two exorcists. Paniko. Issei-senpai. Please calm down, she said, making the pure-blooded Saiyan stop emitting her power, which no one perceived, except the white-haired girl. Zenobia? Tell me, Asia, do you still believe in our god? I asked Ria's bishop. Irina? Zenobia, she is a demon. It is not possible that she still believes in God, she said, ignoring. Zenobia? Even some heretics and blasphemers still retain her faith because of the guilt of betraying him. I can feel the guilt in her. Irina? Can you feel it? I asked Zenobia. Tell me, Asia-chan, even though you are a demon, do you believe in our Lord? Asia. No, I can't stop believing in him. I have believed in him all my life, she said, shedding tears. I will never stop believing in him, Zenobia. In that case, I will kill you right now, she said, scaring Asia. If you still believe in him, all the sins you have committed will be forgiven, so I will punish you, she said, grabbing her rap sword. Issei. Enough, he shouted, releasing a part of his power, making the two exorcists kneel due to the pressure that was pushing them down. You have to be very brave or very stupid to threaten Asia in my presence, he said, lowering his head to Zenobia's height. If you try to hurt her, I will make sure you get a good beating. Zenobia. That is a very serious threat, she said, trying to get up. You want the demons to confront God? She said with a confident smile so that the black-haired man began to laugh. What are you laughing at? I asked angrily. Issei. Oh, you won't face me as a demon, but as a Saiyan? She said, stopping emitting her chi, making the two exorcists stand up, remembering the last words she said. Irina. What is a Saiyan? I asked, standing up. I see. You will have to fight me so I can tell you, the Scion spoke with confidence. Leave me something to Ice Khan, said a familiar voice. Turning their heads towards the voice, everyone present found Yumi, who was looking seriously at the exorcists. Yumi, I will be your opponent, Zenovia. And who are you? Asked the blue-haired exorcist. Yumi? I'm your senpai, she said seriously, but they classified me as a failure. I spoke seriously while Rias looked at her with great concern. Scene change. Outside the old building, outside the club, Issei and Yumi were standing in front of Irina and Zenovia. The black-haired man was dressed in a Guy martial arts kimono that was a gift from Master Rashi, along with the cane turtle school symbol in the heart area and some loose dark blue pants with a ring in the ankle area that attached them to the legs. He also had a black undershirt and brown wristbands, shoes and belt, which the belt had the same symbol as the golden shirt where Issei's tail was curled just above. Okus Guy from Dragon Ball Evolution, Akino. But you I call Akino her king. Are you sure it's a good idea for you to face two members of the church? I questioned Rias. Rias, Akino, this is nothing more than an unofficial confrontation between the two sides, she said, looking at her two servants. Furthermore, she said, focusing her vision on her boyfriend, I doubt that my dear pawn will lose against them. Remember his origin, he told her. To his queen, making him open his eyes when he remembers that detail, Akino, you fufufu. I hope you come out of this confrontation well, he said, laughing elegantly. Irina. If the church finds out about this, we will be in trouble, she said, taking off her cloak, revealing her combat uniform that consisted of a tight sleeveless leotard, long fingerless gloves that extend to her biceps and thigh-high boots, decorated with ribbons to move the ribbon that became a katana from his arm. Zenovia, we will make every effort not to kill you, he said, taking off his cloak, where underneath he wore the same combat suit as Irina, only he had shoulder pads, and taking his sword to unwrap it from his cloths, revealing a Western greatsword, placing himself next to Irina in combat position, Yumi faced Zenovia to start laughing lightly. Zenovia, what's so funny to you? Yumi? That I finally find the object that I want to destroy with all my soul, she said, so that a pile of swords stuck in the ground came out of the ground. Zenovia. Sword birth, she said, looking at the swords. I remember that a guy from the Sacred Sword Project escaped alive, but I didn't expect demon. She spoke to wield the Excalibur with two hands. Irina. Hide to Issei-kun, she said, drawing the black-haired man's attention while his eyes had stars. I can't believe that my childhood friend has become a demon. Why does fate play with us like that? She said, talking to herself, while Issei had a chibi face Meliodas style. I was finally able to be compatible with an Excalibur. I even traveled by sea and sky to be of help. Is this another test from the Lord? Issei, I think this has been driving you crazy all along, Irina, she said in her head, still with a chibi expression, ignoring her childhood friend's speech. Irina, well, I say cunts, she said, wiping a tear from her left eye. Let me use Excalibur Mimic to atone for your sins, she said, running in the direction of Issei, to jump with the katana held in both hands. Amen, she pronounced, lowering the sword at high speed. Asia, Issei-san, be careful, she said very loudly towards her boyfriend that she only had a bored look. Clink. Everyone present had fish eyes when they saw what had happened. Zenovia. How is it possible, she said without believing what she was seeing. Irina. How is it possible that he did it, she said, looking at her opponent who had blocked her sword with a single finger. If that's all you do, I'm going to be really bored, she said, looking at Irina with boredom, who continued attacking him with cuts, which she blocked with her index finger. Irina. She shouted, making a downward cut, which I blocked again. Mio, stop blocking my sword and face your punishment, she said, looking with a pout at Asahi, who only raised his right hand, generating a ball of golden kai, which came out, shot towards Irina, who narrowly avoided it, so that behind her, the ball collided with a tree, causing an explosion. Asahi, this is the power difference between you and me, Irina, so give up and apologize to Asia. I speak with a serious look. Irina? If it's the truth, she said, she can't be hurt for telling her the truth. Issei, you've hurt him with those words, so apologize or face this beating that you are going to take, he said. While the brunette with pigtails raised her guard again. I see that you want it to be the hard way, so be it, he said, doing so. His hair stood on end and tendrils of golden energy came out of his body. Hiya, he shouted to become a Super Saiyan. Issei. Let's fight, she said, getting into a turtle-style position. Well, with Rias and the others, Rias? It seems that what they told you made him very angry to become Super Saiyan, she said, looking at her boyfriend and then at her sister from her harem, who was moved to see that she loved her, defended with such ferocity. Akino. Super Saiyan? Asked the black-haired woman with violet eyes. Rias? Ice explained to me that in his race there is an ancient legend that once every millennium on the original planet of his race, a Saiyan with great power was born, a warrior with a power incomparable to that of his peers who was named the Super Saiyan. Back to the combat, Issei, in a swift movement, appeared in front of Irina, punching her in the stomach, causing her to double over in pain and fall to the ground so that Issei returned to her normal state. Seeing that Zenovia had defeated Yumi, who was now on the ground trying to get up. Issei, do you want to fight too? She said, looking at the blue-haired girl, who only looked seriously at the black-haired man to shake her head. Zenovia. You are strong, you would be a good ally if you were not a demon, she said, approaching her unconscious companion. Issei, a moment of her, she said, raising her hand and throwing a sphere of energy at her, which surrounded her, making her open her eyes. Irina. What happened? She asked, getting up from the ground. Issei. Just let me defeat you with one blow, said the Saiyan, making Irina pout in annoyance. Irina? Moo, I wanted to win, she said, making everyone, including Yumi, have a drop of sweat falling down the back of her neck. Then the black-haired man took out of her pocket a small brown cloth bag with a thread at the end. Issei, take this, Irina-chan, she said, giving her the bag so that she could open it and find some green beans. Irina, what is this? She said, looking at the seed. Issei. It's an apology gift for having lost against me, he said, making Irina puff out her cheeks again. They are senza seeds, take them when you're hurt, and you'll be as good as new after eating them, he said, so that Zenovia could take the bag and he would throw it back to Issei. Zenovia, we don't want anything from a demon, she said. Let's go, Irina, we've already wasted too much time with this. Irina, wait for me, Zenovia, she said, following her goodbye. Issei. Kun, if you ever want to atone for your sins, call me, okay, she said, kissing the cross of her pendant. Issei. I really think it's faith, it's gone very badly for you, he said, watching her leave. Rias, wait, Yumi. Rias shouted, making Issei turn around, watching Yumi leave the place. Ignoring Rias, Issei then stood in the middle of her path. Yumi? Get away, Issei, she said, so that the black-haired man wouldn't move. I said to stay away, she screamed, so that her vision turned black and she fell to the ground unconscious, being picked up by Issei bridal style. Issei. Rias, let's take her to the club. When she wakes up, I will have some words with her, she said, so that Rias nodded and they went inside the building. Dark 2, my first daughter. Club room. After the fight against the exorcists, Issei and Rias took Yumi to the living room where they left her on the couch. Issei. I hope she wakes up soon, the black-haired man said with concern, so that Rias hugged his arm. Rias. Don't worry, Yumi is strong, she will wake up in a short time, said the redhead, trying to reassure her boyfriend. Issei. I hope so, Issei said, a little calmer, to sit on the sofa that was in front of which Yumi was so that Rias could sit next to him and rest her head on Issei's shoulder. Then Rias felt that she was losing a small part of his power, which came out in a black light with a red edge, which was directed at the black-haired man. Rias, she said, worried, since the power of destruction was very harmful, so that the power was absorbed by a gem on her necklace, the orange-red one. Then the necklace shone even more, from which a red sphere emerged, which fell to the ground, beginning to form a silhouette, so that when the glow dimmed, a black cat could be seen with the lower part of its face red. It had whiskers that protruded from its cheeks. Its body was also black, but on its paws, it had 2 lines that surrounded them, which were red. The cat had its eyes closed so that when it opened them, it looked at Issei and Rias, jumping into the black-haired boy's lap and snuggling, feeling the black-haired boy's warmth. Rias, do you know what has happened? I asked him with a face of total confusion. Issei. More or less, he said. I'll explain it to you when we get home, he said, so that Yumi began to regain consciousness. Yumi-chan, he said softly, making her open her eyes. Yumi was stunned at first, but when she remembered, she made an angry face. Issei. Yumi-chan, are you feeling better? Said the Saiyan. Being ignored by the princess of cool Yumi, said Goku's brother. Do you hate the sword? He asked her so that the girl would look at him with anger. Yumi? Because of that sword, my friends and brothers died. How could I not hate that sword? He said, shouted with a lot of hatred and resentment. Issei. Yumi, Excalibur is an inanimate object, which cannot do harm by its own will. Instead of hating the sword, focus your anger on the person responsible for the project. Yumi was stunned by those words since they were very right. A weapon cannot do harm on its own. Only if someone wields it can it do harm. To say, and don't think I don't know how you feel, I speak towards the blonde with the mole. My biological parents, along with almost my entire race, were annihilated by a tyrant next to my home planet, but that does not define my life. It is just a goal that I have. Well, your life only revolves around your revenge, so I will ask you this. After you get your revenge, what will you do? I explained to her friend that she was thoughtful. You mean? Your words are right, Ice-Khan. I never lived my life completely for my revenge. Am I really taking advantage of my life? She thought. Issei. Also, he spoke again. Do you think that your friends and brothers wanted you to avenge them? Or did they want you to live for them? She told the knight about her first girlfriend. Think about it, she said, getting up from the couch and being followed by the cat and the redhead. They left the room, leaving Yumi with her thoughts. Scene change. Issei's house. After talking to Yumi and giving her something to think about, Ice, along with Rias, went towards Issei's house so that before Issei opened the door, Asia opened it from inside, where she was wearing only an apron to cover herself. Asia? Welcome, said the blonde with emerald eyes, with a smile, making Issei's brain restart for a few moments. I see, Asia. The black-haired man exclaimed. Because you are only wearing an apron, Issei said, looking away. Asia. This, she said, lifting the skirt of the apron. A little Kiryu-san told me that this was a way to receive the person you love in Japan, she said innocently. Issei. Damn you, IK. Don't take advantage of my Asia's innocence, he thought with some anger. Asia, please take it off before Akko-san sees you, he said with some concern, while Rias, who was holding the cat, he looked with some jealousy. Izumi? Don't worry, Sochi, I'll help her put it on, Issei's mother spoke, leaving the dining room. Rias? Aku-sama, I also want to put on the apron, said Rias with determination. Izumi? Well, Rias-chan, you don't want to lose to Asia, right? He said so that Rias blushed a little and nodded. Come with me, he said, so that Rias took off her shoes and entered the house. You will wear one so seductive that you will make my son take you to his room and not let you leave until the morning, he said in the ear of the redhead, who blushed tomato level, while a trickle of blood came out of her nose. Then Izumi looked at the cat that was in Ria's hands. Izumi? Rias-chan, I catch his attention and that cat? He asked, looking at the animal that the demon had, where the animal began to glow red and got off of Rio's grip. The silhouette began to deform, changing into a bipedal humanoid form. When the glow dimmed, the cat was replaced by a 5-year-old girl with black hair with red highlights. On her head she had cat ears and a feline tail on her lower back. Daddy, Mommy, said the girl, hugging Issei and then hugging Rias. All the girls were stunned, unable to react for a few moments. Rias, Asia, Izumi. What? The two shouted, while the girl hid behind Issei, clinging to his leg. Scene change. Dining room. Izumi, are you telling me that legends and myths are real? Izumi asked Issei. Issei? Yes, she said while she was next to Rias, who had the girl on her lap. Boru, if we had not found you, I would have said that that does not exist, but with you nothing is, said Issei's father. So this is your daughter, he said, looking at the girl who was only smiling innocently at everyone's attention. Issei. Tell me, daughter. The black-haired man spoke while the girl looked at him. Do you have names? She said so that she denied. Then we will give you one. Yes, she said with childish joy. Issei thought for a while until she came up with the name. Issei, since you are my and Ria's daughter, how about we call you Rissa? She said so that she bounced on her mother's lap. Rissa? Rissa, 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 he said her name with happiness. Asia, now I also want to have a child with this. Yes, and Asia thought with a sad look, being seen by Rissa, who only hugged her. Rissa. Mommy Asia, I caught her attention. Don't you want Rissa? She said with a sad look. But that look she made Asia pierced by an arrow of tenderness in her heart. Asia. How can I not love you? She said, giving him a hug, which she reciprocated. Issei. It seems that she also sees you as a mother, said the brunette with a smile to look at her parents. Now you have a beautiful granddaughter whom you can spoil. When she finished speaking, she saw her parents holding each other's hands while crying. Izumi, I thought it would be impossible, he said. Goru. But we have a beautiful granddaughter. Arc 2, Prelude to the Cadre. Second Arcade, DBS, Scene. Abandoned Quit Church. In the church where Asia died because of Rainer, and where she was revived by Rias, there were the two exorcists who were naked, taking a bath in the water inside the church. Irina, we can't even take a hot bath, she said, taking water with her hands to pass it over her body. Will this be another test from the Lord? Zenobia. Of course not, Irina, said the blue-haired exorcist, who was also naked. You spent our entire accommodation fund on that fake painting, she reproached her partner. Irina. It's not fake, his childhood friend replied, with a childish tone. Zenobia, that painting is not of St. Peter, it looks like a doodle made by a child, said Zenobia. Because I have to be with such a stupid and naive girl, she thought with a sigh. Irina? You know, Zenobia, you tend to get depressed more than anyone else, Irina spoke, trying to cheer up her partner so that her stomach began to rumble, making her blush with embarrassment. I'm hungry, Zenobia? We don't have food either, she also said with a blush on her cheeks, and without money, we don't have food. The two girls sighed. Zenobia? By the way, Irina, I call her partner. Do you know what that word that Hyodou said meant? Irina? Saiyan? I asked to shake my head. That word doesn't sound familiar to me, and the fact that her hair also changed color, like her eyes. At the end of that conversation about that word, they had the same question. What happened to Essie? Scene change. Essie's house kitchen. It was 6 o'clock in the morning, where in the kitchen of the house, Essie was preparing breakfast for her family and her mistress. Essie. Let's surprise them all, she thought as she grabbed the spatula and started cooking. Scene change. Issei's room. The first thing Rias felt when she opened her eyes was the emptiness next to her, the place where Issei would be, so that she would wake up completely when she smelled an intoxicating aroma, which made her hungry. Rias. Because of the mao, which is this delicious smell, she thought to change into her school uniform to leave her servant's room to see that Asia and Issei's parents were experiencing the same thing. Scene change. Lower floor of the house. When they went down to the source of that smell, they saw different dishes on the table. Each one had a label with a word in front of it. Yoryu sat where the piece of paper had written on it, next to his wife, Mickey, who had the word on the paper. Rias and Asia, together with Rissa, sat next to Rias-in-law and Rissa in front. The 5 people couldn't stop drooling when they saw the American breakfast that was in front of each of them, made with each one's tastes. I say, I hope you like it, said the Saiyan, leaving the kitchen with a thermos of coffee and a jug of juice. Boru. Son, the patriarch of the family, spoke to his son. How did you learn to cook? Issei. The exile ship had everything, from combat to cooking, he explained to her father, while he served coffee to her parents. Itadakumesu, he said, giving thanks for the breakfast. Boru, Mikey Surius Rissa. I did akamasu, the others repeated to start breakfast. I'm Skip. After breakfast. After finishing breakfast and giving his father, along with Asia and Rias, their bentos for the lunch break, they prepared to leave the house, but not before saying goodbye to Mickey and Rissa. Rias. Behave well, Rissa, he said, giving his daughter a hug. Rissa? Yes, Mommy, she said with a tender smile. I say, When we get back, your mother and I will take you for ice cream, said the Pokemon's father, making him jump for joy, repeating ice cream over and over again. Scene change. Streets of Kwa. It was already night in Kwa, where the Saiyan of this planet was walking through the streets of Kwa towards his house until he was able to capture a supernatural energy that seemed familiar to him. Issei, where does this energy sound from? He said in his head to go to an alley and use instant transmission to go to the owner of that energy. Scene change. Abandoned warehouse outside. Upon arriving at the location of the energy, he realized that it was in the vicinity where he and the rest of Rias' nobility confronted Visor, but his trip to the world of memories was interrupted by the sound of an explosion. Turning towards the explosion site, she saw a flash of holy light. Issei. I'd better turn into Super Saiyan to avoid being recognized, said Issei, transforming. Once turned blonde, he went to the side of the explosion to meet Yumi, Zenobia and Irina, along with Saki and Kaneko, confronting the mad priest, Creed Selzen, which was facing Yumi with the same speed, and Saki, in her right hand, appeared a strange piece of armor shaped like a lizard, black in color, with blue stripes and purple eyes, which opened, emerging from the lizard's mouth, a phosphorescent blue rope, which hooked on Fried's leg. But before Yumi attacked Fried, an old priest appeared. Swerth birth, said the old man, letting himself be seen before everyone. I remember that a girl from the Sacred Sword Project had that sacred gear. Fried, come on, old Balba, said Fried, making Yumi, Kaneko and the exorcists open their eyes at that name. Yumi Balba Galilei Yumi shouted with great hatred before the man who killed her brothers and sisters. The priest turned around and with a smile and an evil look said, Balba? That's my name, girl. Fried, old Balba, I call the old man Fried. How do I get off this shiny rope that shitty demon has hooked on me? Balba concentrates the sacred energy on the edge of the Excalibur. He explained to his partner who did what he was told, which made the Excalibur he had begin to shine in gold, which was concentrated on the edge, cutting the line that it entrapped. Fried. Yahoo! He shouted with a childish tone, I understand. If I concentrate the sacred power in the sword, it increases its power, he said with a crazy smile while looking at the sword in his hands. In that case, Yumi opened her eyes when she saw that Fried was looking at her while she had her sword stuck in the ground. Fried, he fell victim to my Excalibur, he shouted, jumping towards the Knight of Ria's eye. Yumi pulled her sword out of the ground, ready to clash against the Excalibur. Click! For the two priests to open their eyes as if they were fish, since the Excalibur was blocked with a finger, which belonged to Issei, who was still in his Super Saiyan state. Issei. I will not allow you to hurt the people I care about, said the Saiyan. Fried. Are you? Was the only thing Fried could say. Alba? How were you able to stop it? Asked the head of the Holy Sword Project, stuttering. Fried, now out of shock, continued throwing cuts, which Issei blocked with a single finger and a bored face. Issei. Have you finished, Fried? Issei asked boredly. Fried. Don't underestimate me, Balba. Fried. It's time to retreat, said Balba, so that Fried separated from Issei and stood next to the genocidal archbishop and threw a ball to the ground, which generated a blinding light. That, when it subsided, the two excommunicated members of the church would have vanished from the place. Yumi? Damn, Yumi whispered to chase Balba and Fried along with Zenobia and Irina. Issei at that moment expired, making his hair turn black again as did his eyes. Saki? Hi, Dukun? Saki asked. Issei? The same, she responded, looking at Kaneko and Saki. But before they could speak, two magic circles, one from the Citri family and the other from the Gremory house, appeared right behind them. Rias? So you were here, said Rias, with her eyes closed, next to Akino. Could you explain to me what happened here, Ice? Sona? Saki, could you tell me why you got into this? He said with a serious tone, making his pawn get scared and start trembling with fear. Scene change. Warehouse interior. Inside the warehouse, Saki was being spanked by Sona, while Kaneko and Issei only listened to Rias saying that he didn't want his servants to be hurt. Rias? You also have to have your punishment, she said. Issei? But I didn't do anything, Issei excused himself. I only went because I felt Fried's energy. Rias? But you got involved anyway, she said, to generate a magic circle in her hand. The punishment for disobeying me will be 1,000 lashes for each one. Dees. That's not fair, said the Saiyan in the face of that injustice. I'm leaving was the only thing he said, to use instant transmission, leaving the place. Scene change. Forest. Meanwhile, Irina, who had been separated from Zenobia and Yumi, was being bombarded by blasts of holy light and being cut down by Fried. Your Excalibur will be very useful for my boss's plan, said Fried, taking Excalibur mimic from Missy's childhood friend. Fried said a deep and crazy voice, which came from the air, revealing a shadow, leave her on the verge of death, let it be a message for the protectors of this city. Fried. Hi. While Fried heard Irina with blows and cuts, the sky cleared, revealing the face of the shadow, which was visible thanks to the moonlight. Soon I will have what I want, he said with a crazy smile. A new biblical war, he said to laugh madly while his eyes shone red. Dark 2 Neo-Drape, Pirate Action. Upon returning to the club, Rias had a worried face being seen by the members of his nobility, except Yumi, who had not yet returned. Then the magic circle appeared in Rias' ear. Rias? I understand, said Rias to the circle that faded. We have to go to the park. Sona has found the exorcist Irina Hyodou in a critical state. S.A. Irina, she said, to use instant transmission and go to the location where Sona was. Scene change. Park. Appearing in the park, he watched as Sona used her magic in an effort to stabilize Irina. S.A. Irina S.A. shouted, approaching the place where Irina was. Her clothes were destroyed, revealing her breasts. Sona Kaiju, tell me the truth, will she be okay? Sona. I'm sorry, S.A. Kuin, but she is very serious. Irina. Issei, Irina said weakly. Issei remembered the senza seeds that he always carried with him. Issei. Irina, I can heal you, he said to her childhood friend. Well, he took out the cloth bag, and from it Issei eat the seed, he said, but then he felt Irina's energy plummet. So I make a decision, Issei. Sorry for this, Irina, she said, taking the seed and starting to chew it. Then she grabs Irina, lifting her head by the nape of her neck. Irina? Issei-kun, what are you going to do? He said, opening his eyes with the little strength he had to blush when he felt that his childhood friend and first love had stolen his first kiss. Then he felt that he put his tongue in and some fragments of the seed that he had chewed that she swallowed. All this was seen by Sona, along with her queen Tsubaki and four-piece Puan Saki, as well as Rias, along with the rest of her nobility. When she separated from the other's lips, Irina felt like a new woman, able to get up from the ground without any difficulty. Irina. Arigato Issei-kun, said Irina, still embarrassed by the kiss. Issei. You're welcome, Irene, she said so that she felt like they were stretching her cheek and she started to complain. There he is. How dare you kiss a woman that I have not approved, she said with jealousy. Then from the bushes, Fried came out, who had in his hands a sword different from the Excalibur rapidly. Fried. Hello, 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 the crazy priest greeted. Apparently you like the gift I left you, did you like it? You bucking demons, Fried spoke to make a psychotic face. Issei. You unfortunate son of a bitch, Issei said, turning on his Kiora. I'm going to break your face off. Issei shouted with great anger, while his eyes blinked from black to blue. Fried? Wait, Fried said, trying to stop Issei. I have to give the crimson-haired demon a message. Rias? What message? asked the crazy priest. Fried? Rather, my boss will tell you, he said to look at the sky, which turned purple, a sign that a barrier had been put up. Everyone looked up to see a fallen angel with 5 pairs of wings. Kaneko. A fallen one, said Kaneko. One with 10 wings. It's a pleasure, said the cadre looking down, daughter of the Gremory clan. My name is Kekabil. Rias. Good morning, cadre Kekabil. My name is Rias. Gremory Rias introduced herself. It is also a pleasure. Kekabil. You have the same hair as your brother, the Crimson Satan. Just looking at you makes me remember it, and that makes me want to vomit. Rias. And then, what do you want to tell me now that we are reunited? Said Rias, looking at Kekabil. It will have to be something very important if a Kabil comes to tell me. Kekabil, I have been thinking about using your academy and your city as the epicenter of a plan, I explained, looking confidently at the demons. A new biblical war. Rias, you're crazy, said Rias with a worried face. The last war almost extinguished the factions. If there is another one, it will be the end of the world. The Kabil. The previous war left me with a bad taste in my mouth, he said with boredom. I thought that if I snatched the Excaliburs from heaven, there would be more consequences that those weak exorcists would send me. Issei. It was your plan from the beginning, right? Said Issei. Attract the Sky faction to the demon territory, and thus have your precious war. Kabil. That's right, he responded with a battle-hungry smile. After the war, everything became boring. My brothers Azazel and Shemazai agreed to not have another war. Issei. Those names are the same as what Rainer said, he thought, remembering the words of his assassin, Bikino. Azazel is the leader of the Fallen, and Shemazai is the sub-leader of the Fallen Angels faction, Kabil. Azazel is a bad leader. He was the first to withdraw from the war, plus he started collecting the artifacts created by Father, the sacred gears. He said to look at us, say, wow, it seems that Rainer didn't do her job well, he said, making the ex-chestnut look at the cadre. Issei. What are you saying, Crow? Issei asked. Kabil? Easy Sekiryuutei. I was the one who gave her the order to kill you, she said, leaving Issei in shock. But she didn't want to kill you, so I had to use a metal control spell, and the best of all is that I saw how she had killed you. Everyone present did not know what to say, but the most affected was the pure-blood Saiyan. Issei had his head lowered, faced with that information. Because of him, an innocent person died who was controlled to do something she didn't want. Issei? You, he said, increasing his power, drawing the attention of the cadre. Because of you I died for being a possible threat. Freed? Freed laughed in a psychopathic way. My boss's madness makes him the best. Don't you think, he said, to grab the tunic and open it, revealing that he had 2 more swords. Saki? Are those? I asked with some fear. An echo? Excalibur? Fried? The boss gave me these little things, and it goes without saying that I can use them all. I'm the best of all, he said, laughing again. The Kabil. The cadre laughed madly. If you want to prevent this war from starting, go to the epicenter of your territory, the academy. See you, he said, launching a barrage of spears of sacred light. Rias. Undercover, he said while creating a magical shield, next to Akino, which blocked the spears with difficulty. Issei only looked seriously at the spears that had not yet fallen to generate an air wave, which broke the spears into particles of light. Issei. Irina, she called her friend so that the black-haired man would join his hands. Banbutsu SMZM no Jutsu, she said, using her large reserves of chakra. She separated her hands little by little, revealing that in the center of the union, a katana had been formed in an unusual way. Bess. You will need to be armed here, she said, handing him the sword. Irina. Issei-kun, how did you create it? Issei. Explanations for later. This sword is called Zabumaru. It has more or less the ability to stretch, like your Excalibur mimic. I explained the basic function of Irina's new sword, Rias. Kakabil has gone to the academy. We must hurry, my dear servants. Scene change. Academy exterior, night. In the academy area, a barrier with the appearance of a crystal appeared, covering the entire territory of the academy. Sona. The barrier we have placed should withstand damage to the outside, so the city should not be damaged. Thank you, Sona. You have saved us. She thanked her childhood friend, Sona. However, I cannot guarantee that the barrier will withstand Kakabil's attacks, she said. Seriously, we will need reinforcements. It is not too late for you to call Yorani-sama. Rias only sweat cold at that request. Rias, you can also call your Wani-sama, she replied, making Sona also break out in a cold sweat. Sona. Lucifer-sama, I think he would be a better reinforcement, she said, preventing him from calling her older sister. Okia knows. I just informed Sagisha-sama. Rias. Okia knows, why did you do it? Okia knows. Rias, I understand that you don't want to cause problems for your brother, but this will not be like the raiding game against Reiser. In this fight, we risk our lives. We face a cadre who survived the biblical war, he said. Seriously, let's ask him help, Maul Lucifer. Rias just looked at Okino for a few moments to sigh in resignation. Okino, I'm glad you agree, but you, he said with his typical closed-eyed smile, Surgic Soma's reinforcements will arrive in about an hour. Rias? I can't win an argument with you, Okino? She said with a tone mixed with defeat and joy to realize that Issei was missing. Where's Ice? And just at that moment Issei appeared with the same uniform with which he returned after facing Barris. Issei. Am I late? Rias. No, you're just in time, she said, blushing when she saw her beloved in those clothes, which let her see her toned arms and chest. Scene change. Academy courtyard. Upon entering the academy, all the Gremry nobility saw how in the sky there were different magic circles, which were united by a stream of golden light. They say, "What is she doing?" Vacabile. Balba is merging the Excaliburs into one, said the cadre, from the sky, where he had a throne that flew over the academy in the end. Who will come? Will it be Sergiches, or maybe Seraphil? Rias? Instead of my brother or Leviathan Sama, we will be the ones who face you. Vacabile, with his arrogant smile still on his face, snapped his fingers, generating a spear of light, which he sent towards the academy gym, making it disappear. Issei only felt her Saiyan blood igniting from that display of power. Issei, finally, someone I can fight with a little more seriously, she thought with excitement, so she showed the boosted gear. Greg, wow partner, this will be your first major fight on this planet, Issei. And you say it, friend, my blood cries out for me to face him. Greg. I don't doubt it, he faced the Yonde Maywin god, surviving that war. The Cabile, boring, said the cadre. But maybe you can entertain my pets, he said, so that the spear stuck in the ground generated a hole, from which lava began to come out so that the guardian dog of hell, Cerberus, could emerge. Rias. Cerberus, the guard dog of the underworld Asia. The guardian of the underworld, she repeated with a look of fear. Issei, your turn, friend, he said, looking at the boosted gear ready to go. Greg. Here we go, partner, she said, so that the boosted gear began to shine red for the light to separate from the gauntlet, taking the shape of a sphere, which fell into Issei's hand. Issei, start letter, he shouted, throwing a card to the ground, which, when touched, glowed red, creating a wave that spread across the ground. Here he is. Ice, I call his pawn, what are you doing? Issei. Balance the scales, he said, grabbing the sphere. Fight Bakugan, he shouted, throwing the sphere in front of the brain Neodragyrus action. At the moment of touching the ground, the sphere opened so that the upper part of the figure began to rotate, generating a tornado of fire, which swallowed the Cerberus, and then a red dragon, with yellow details, emerged from the tornado, and green eyes. Greg. He roared with all his strength, generating a sound wave. I say. Tell me, Greg, how does it feel to be able to be away once again? Greg. That's great, partner, I feel incredible, said the red dragon with joy. Octavio looked at that dragon in amazement, since the name of that dragon was one of those that were defeated and his souls were sealed in 2 sacred gear. Issei. Leave it to us, but you, Dreg needs to stretch his wings, he said without looking at his master, who nodded. Here he is. I don't know why I'm still impressed with Ice, she thought, recovering from that scene in front of her. I say. Open home cart, she said, so that streams of flames came out of the ground, which were absorbed by Drake fight. Thanks for listening to my video. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe and comment below your favorite part. Sayonara, see you in the next video.